but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man, Louie T, aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2021 NFL Draft using our grading scale from 5 to 1. Each pick will be assessed a grade. We will then tally up all of the grades at the end of the draft, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall score for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the process. This is the You Pick format, so simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Jets next, Jets, Jets next, New York Jets. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the New York Jets, the Jets, Jets. And Joe Douglas, I must say, is doing a fantastic job of trying to reshape the image and perception of what the Jets are as an organization. I think the hire of Robert Saleh this offseason was magnificent, and you can see the real focus to change the defense in this draft, but more specifically, the impact of Robert Saleh in this particular draft. The first 4 picks spent on all offensive players, and then you see Saleh pretty much take over the draft and say, okay, let's reshape the defense. Let's reshape the secondary. Let's reshape the linebacking position. They've spent a lot of draft capital on the defensive line in past years, so really didn't need to do a lot there. But let's reshape the back 7, the secondary. Let's reshape the linebacking core. Let's start to make this defense look like a defense that I can take, mold, and make into my own. And you can see Robert Saleh's influence on this draft, but make no mistake about it, this draft is going to go a long way. If Joe Douglas is the right man for the job in New York, this draft is going to go a long way in helping him cement his status as the general manager in New York. You get a franchise quarterback. You get a receiver that I thought was underrated in this draft. You get a big-time offensive lineman. You get a lot of quality stuff. Let's look at this draft, see what the Jets were able to come away with, and why I think this is an impressive draft and haul for the New York Jets. We start in the first round, 2nd overall pick. Quarterback out of BYU, Zach Wilson is the pick. This was my favorite quarterback in this entire draft class, if not for some of the injury concerns. And I don't want to necessarily say the competition or level of competition or lack thereof, but it's not Trevor Lawrence, that's for sure. It's not, and the ACC isn't great, but it's still better than what BYU was seeing out in the Mountain West. That said, bottom line is Zach Wilson's talent is undeniable. And, you know, some people see him as a boomer bust prospect. I see this guy having ridiculous amounts of talent, and the ceiling being, you know, absolutely to the sky. I mean, I've done a video on him, so I'm not going to break him down here. If you want to see the full breakdown of Zach Wilson, I will drop the link in the comment section and pin it of this video so that you can click the link and watch the full breakdown of Zach Wilson if you haven't already had a chance to do that. But this guy's talent is insane, and he, to me, looks the most like today's NFL quarterback. He looks more like the Kyler Murrays and the Patrick Mahomeses and the Aaron Rodgers. He looks more in the mold of that guy than any of the other quarterbacks in this draft. He's exciting. He's going to make a bunch of splash plays. He's probably going to make his fair share of mistakes, as young guys do. But when it's all said and done, if he is what I think he could be at the next level, the Jets got themselves a quarterback that's going to give them a chance to win and win big for the next decade plus. So in the first round, 2nd pick overall, quarterback out of BYU, Zach Wilson, for me, is a no doubt about it 5. This is a pick that had to happen. It was a necessary evil, and I figured this would be the selection very early in the process. There were people that were talking about, what are the Jets going to do, or could it be Justin Fields? I'm like, are you crazy? Are you kidding me? Have you watched Zach Wilson? There's really not a discussion to be had. And I think the Jets figured that out pretty early in the process themselves. And once they figured that out and got confirmation that this was the right guy, Sam Darnold's days in New York were numbered. So we move on to the next selection. First round, 14th pick overall. Offensive lineman Elijah Vera-Tucker is the selection out of USC. And this was another one of those selections that you look at and you say, all right, got the quarterback. Now let's protect the quarterback. And they made some moves last offseason, George Fant and all of the guys that they took, Mekhi Becton, to really fortify the offensive line, but they still needed more pieces. And again, if you're going to go and get the quarterback, you better be able to protect him. And that's what this move here is going to help them do, along with, also helping them in the run game. But Elijah Vera-Tucker is more of a pass game savant than he is a run blocking demon. And so we'll talk about that here in a second. But 6'4", 308 pounds. So what you see in front of you was the artwork that I did prior to his pro day and getting the measurables. With no combine this year, it was hard to get the most accurate numbers. So some of the numbers that you see on the screen may be off, as in the case here. He's not 300 pounds. He's 308 pounds, but he is 6'4" and a half, 308 pounds. And this is a guy that, I'm going to be honest with you, I was more impressed with his tackle tape than I was his guard tape. So you go to 2019 and he's a guard. You go to 2020, he's playing tackle. And, a lot of people are going to give him grief because of his arms. They're not long enough. And you know how they like to do that song and dance. I've always said, and I'll always contend this, until you prove to me that you can't, I'm going to give you every opportunity to prove that you can at the NFL level. I'm not just going to whisk you away to the guard position because your arms are 32, and a half inches or whatever the case may be. But I'm just going to tell you the tackle tape was better than the guard tape. So for whatever it's worth, let's talk about his strengths. Here's a guy that, to me, has a big, thick, powerful frame. When you look at him, how he's put together, he's not sloppy. He's got a nice lean frame, the kind that you're looking for at the NFL level. And it's a powerful frame that I think is even going to get stronger as he gets into a very structured weight and conditioning program in the NFL. I think this guy could even become a better offensive lineman. Right now, I think he's more finesse than he is brute strength, and I think he has the potential to be a stronger, more physically imposing offensive lineman. So I think you like what you see just off the raw measurables on Elijah Vera-Tucker. Strong hands that offers a potent punch and doubles as a vice grip. So what I love about him in the pass game as a protector is that he's got really strong hands, and those hands allow him to put out a nice, sturdy, firm punch. And I talk about being in the trenches and how it's like a boxing match. And if you've got a long jab, which Elijah Vera-Tucker does not, but even if you have a jab and it's good, you want to get it out there. You want to get it out there and be active, be early, be first, and initiate contact, initiate the action. That's what he does with that stiff jab of his. And then when you do see him engage, when he does lock up that defensive lineman, he's got that G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip, that vice grip that you love to see offensive linemen have, where they get inside of those pads, lock them up, and that guy just isn't moving. So you love to see that from an offensive lineman, and you see it from Elijah Vera-Tucker. Good athleticism to get out and move. And I saw this more at tackle than I did at guard. Now, you saw him pulling at guard, and he would be the lead pulling guard on a lot of these plays. But I love the way he gets out of his stance as a tackle. He shoots out of his stance. He's able to push guys around the pocket and keep the integrity of the pocket intact. And you know what? From watching the tape in 2019 as a guard, I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to move his feet fast enough and get out there. But, man, did he ever. And so there's really good athleticism to get out and move and be out in front of plays if need be, but really getting out of his stance, moving laterally, really impressed with AVT and what he was able to do in that regard. He processes games, stunts, and blitzes very well. Whether he was on the interior as a guard in 19 or 2020, you see a guy that understands protection, understands what the defense is trying to do. sees guys coming and looping around and washes them inside, or is able to pass a guy off cleanly and then transition to the next guy that's coming around. He does a really phenomenal job of getting his job done and making sure the guy next to him is able to get his job done as well. You see some guys sometimes really not understand what the defense is trying to do and how they're trying to set them up, or they stick with a guy too long that's looping, a guy that may be stunting to the outside, and then you get the looping defender coming around and you stick with that guy that's stunting to the outside a little too long, and it gives that looping defender an opportunity to get inside. You don't see that with Elijah Vera-Tucker. AVT shuts all of that off. If they're blitzing with an extra defender, he'll get a piece of the guy on the inside and then come back and get a piece of the guy on the outside, push him around just enough so the quarterback can deliver the football. You just see a very intelligent offensive lineman that understands protection and what his job is and how he can do it to the best of his abilities. Can climb to the second level and affect multiple hats. So what I mean by that is this is a guy that you'll see get out, and again, this is at guard or tackle. You'll see him get out to the second level, come off of a double team, get to the second level, but he's not just looking to get one guy. He's looking to get multiple guys, touch multiple hats on a play. And there was a run that I was watching him block on, and he starts on the double team, works his way to the second level, gets a piece of the linebacker, and then gets a piece of the safety too. I'm like, that's just awesome to get three guys on one play. You don't see that very often, but this is a guy that just gets it, just understands, and it doesn't take much. All you need to do is just stop a guy's momentum. If a guy's running at full speed and you just get a piece, now he's got to reaccelerate. He's got to restart that engine again. And if your running back is going at full speed, good luck trying to catch him after you have to, reaccelerate and try to get back to top speed again. So it doesn't take much to just disrupt a guy trying to make a play. So I just love to see guys get out to the second level and get a piece of a defender. Tremendous anchor. I didn't see this guy bull rushed at all. There were a couple of times early in the rep he may start off a little sluggish, but eventually he's going to bow that back. He's going to dig those heels in, and he will not be moved at some point. So there was never a time where I went, whoa, he got driven all the way back into the lap of the quarterback, or the quarterback got spooked and had to vacate the pocket. At some point, he's going to bow the back, stick those big, thick ankles into the ground, and he's not giving any more ground. So got a tremendous anchor, does AVT. Positional flex. I talked about his ability to play multiple positions, and that's going to benefit him at the next level, whether the Jets decide that this guy is strictly a guard or he's a tackle guard or just a tackle, whatever the case may be. He gives you that positional flex that you're looking for, especially on game day where you might dress 8, but more likely than not, if you're in a pinch and you only dressed 7, you got to be able to have some flexibility. Most teams are going to dress 8 on game day, but it's great to have a guy that can play, 4 positions of the 5 on the offensive line in a pinch. You can play left, right tackle, left or right guard. Those guys are invaluable, and that's what AVT is. 19, he was a guard. In 20, he was a tackle. So you're getting a guy with that kind of positional flex, which, as I mentioned already, invaluable. And then he's got upside. Here's a guy that was only a starter for 2 years at SC. So, 1 year at guard, 1 year at tackle. There's so much growth here with Elijah Vera-Tucker. And I think that's what gets a lot of these coaches excited, is like he's just scratching the surface of what he could be as an offensive lineman, and yet he's already really good. So you feel like the growth is just going to take him to another level and make him one of the better interior or exterior offensive linemen in the league. And that gets you excited. That's why the Jets decided to trade up to grab this guy, because of the upside. Weaknesses: not a man mover. Okay, in the run game, that's just not his forte right now. And that's what I talked about at the beginning, that I think that's something he can get better at, as he gets in the weight room and he gets a little stronger. And some of it, too, I think is technique-wise. I just think he needs a more stronger base. I think a lot of times his base can be somewhat narrow, and that stops him from being able to drive with the kind of power that you're looking to have. Again, I always equate being in the trenches to boxing, because in order to have a firm punch, a punch that's going to really create havoc, as a boxer, you have to have a great foundation. You have to have a strong base. Your feet have to be spread out, shoulder width apart, to be able to generate the kind of power you need to maybe knock a guy down or out. Same thing with an offensive lineman. In order to generate the kind of power you need to move another man against his will, you need to have a good foundation. If you don't have a base that is wide enough, that gives you the ability to stick your feet in the ground and not move and drive a guy, then you're not going to be able to create that movement. And he just doesn't do that right now in the run game, but doesn't mean he doesn't get his job done. He's just not creating a new line of scrimmage. Will overextend and put his head down at times, not seeing the defender and losing balance. So you see this from time to time with him where he'll duck his hat. He's not seeing what he hits, and then the guy swims on him, and now he's off balance. He's not seeing what he's hitting. He's lunging forward, and, next thing you know, the guy's in the backfield. So, that's something. You just keep your eyes up, see what you're hitting, make sure that you are aware of what the guy in front of you is trying to do, and I think he'll be fine in that regard. That's not something that's major, but, it is something that I saw multiple times on tape. Can do a better job of sustaining. I think this is the biggest thing right now for him is I don't want him holding. I'd much rather you, after a gain of 5, just let a guy go if he's going to get away than to try to hold on and turn a 5-yard run into a 25-yard run, but then have it be negated and have it be 1st and 20. I'd much rather you just let the guy go. And he does a really good job of that. But at the same time, move your feet, position your body to be able to sustain that block and not allow that guy to get in and make the tackle. So I think he can do a better job of sustaining at the next level. However, I want a guy to let a defender go. If you're not in a position to continue to sustain, let him go and take the 5 or 7-yard gain. Don't negate that trying to be greedy. So only 15 career starts if you want to nitpick and use that as a weakness. 6 at left tackle this past season and 13 at left guard in 2019. So again, if you want to nitpick, not a lot of experience, but most people see that as a strength. And I used it as upside. You could go both ways with it. He's inexperienced on one end, especially if you're talking tackle, only 6 starts. But if you're talking about upside, then that gets you excited because you like what you see, and there's so much more room for growth. So the Jets, they moved up to get this kid. They love what they saw. I thought that it was a really good move. He was one of the best offensive linemen in the draft. The Jets obviously thought so, which is why they moved up. And in the first round, 14th overall pick, offensive lineman out of USC, Elijah Vera-Tucker, for me, is a 5. I think this is a phenomenal pick. Whether he goes inside, which I think more likely than not with Becton and Fant already on the roster, I think Elijah Vera-Tucker's home is at guard, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. You're building this wall in front of Zach Wilson, and I think it's going to be one that allows this guy to play at an extremely high level. As we go to the next selection for the Jets in this draft, 2nd round, 34th overall pick, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Elijah Moore is the pick, and this was one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was my 4th rated receiver behind the big 3 in this draft of Jamar Chase, the 2 Bama boys, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and then it was Elijah Moore for me. This guy I thought was underrated the entire draft process. I thought he should have been a 1st-round pick. I felt like he was right there with Jalen Waddle in terms of ability to be dynamic. I think Waddle, was a guy that you saw just this ridiculous amount of talent, and, with the injuries and things of that nature, you just felt like you couldn't get the full picture, but you knew that this guy was dynamic. Elijah Moore had the production. You saw the talent. You saw everything you needed to see. And I just don't think people were woke on this guy for whatever reason. I'm not going to break him down here. I've already done it in the draft prospects one-on-one series, but I will leave that link down in the comment section as a pinned comment along with the Zach Wilson video. But I love this pick, man. This is stealing right here in the 2nd round, even though it's early stages of the 2nd round, essentially an extension of the 1st. This is still stealing, if you ask me. I mean, the Jets, they got over on the rest of the league here. This could ultimately be, the best pick of this draft. You're hoping that Zach Wilson is the best pick in this draft, obviously, for obvious reasons. But it wouldn't shock me if this is the best pick in this draft. He's that good to me. I just see potential superstar written all over this dude, and I just love this pick. You already know what this is. I don't have to hesitate. Second round, 34th overall pick, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Elijah Moore for me is a 5. This guy's going to be phenomenal. And I think to pair him with Zach Wilson in year one, you bring in Corey Davis, and you bring in all of these receivers, the kid from Jacksonville who I really like. You keep Jamison Crowder able to restructure with him and get him back on board. There's an abundance of riches in New York for Zach Wilson to get the football to, and I think Elijah Moore may be the best of that group when it's all said and done. We go to your next pick in this draft, 4th round, 107th pick overall, running back out of North Carolina. Michael Carter is the pick, and so 4 picks to start this draft, all 4 on the offensive side of the football. This would be the last offensive pick in this draft as you start to see the impact of new head coach Robert Saleh after this selection. But again, another pick to help out Zach Wilson and this offense. 5'8", 202 pounds. Michael Carter is a guy that is very intriguing. He was a part of a 2-headed monster backfield at North Carolina along with Javonte Williams. And he, to me, was the lightning of the group, of the thunder and lightning combination they had. He was the guy that had a little bit of speed, a little bit of sizzle, could make you miss, all of those good things. And the quickness was on full display at his pro day. And I think that's where we're going to start. I'm going to run down his numbers really quickly, and then we'll get into his strengths and weaknesses. In 44 games total at North Carolina, he toted the rock 514 times for 3,433 yards, and that averaged out to about a 6.63 yards per carry average and 22 career touchdowns as a rusher. As a receiver, 82 catches for 656 yards and 6 touchdowns in his career, so a grand total of 28 touchdowns for Michael Carter in his career, and over right around 4,000 or 4,100, career yards in total. So this is a guy that offers a lot. Strengths-wise, he's compact, has a sturdy frame, and a low center of gravity, which you love in a running back. A lot of running back coaches don't love the upright runner, the upright back, the guy that's 6'1", 6 foot, a lot more real estate to hit for a defender. They like the guys that are small, that can hide behind the offensive line. You can't see him, and then next thing you know, he's exploding through the hole, and you want to know where he just came from. Michael Carter's one of those guys at 5'8", and he's compacted, has one of those well put together frames, kind of not necessarily a fire hydrant, but one of those stocky type of 200-pound frames where he's not just light, a guy that you can just knock around. Elite quickness and awesome bursts, great agility is the next strength. And I talked about his pro day. Check these numbers out. The short shuttle was a 3.98. Wowzers. Okay, so that just tells you just how quick this guy is, and you see it on tape without a doubt. The 3-cone is 6.87, which is good, especially for a running back. But 3.98 short shuttle tells you that this guy has insane quickness. So this is a guy with outstanding agility, and I think that agility is what really aids him in making him so dangerous out in space, his ability to put cuts together and things of that nature. Outstanding patience and vision. Does a really good job with patience, setting up blocks and then cutting off of those blocks. You hear this expression all the time when talking about running backs. Patience to explode through the hole. And Michael Carter is one of those guys that will be patient to set up a block and then explode around that block and off of that block. You see that, and in order to take advantage of some of these things, you got to have the vision. You got to see that defender. You got to see that cut. You got to see that move before it happens. Set up a defender. Before he even sees what's happening, you're setting him up. And Michael Carter is one of those guys that has that contact balance. One of my biggest things for running backs is contact balance. The separator for me is how well you take on contact and remain on your feet and are able to churn out more yards after initial contact is made. Michael Carter is one of those guys that's capable of doing that. He's not afraid of contact. He's not the biggest guy in the world, obviously at 5'8", 200 pounds essentially. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's not afraid of contact. He'll stand in there in pass pro, even though he's a lot of times undersized and undermanned, but he'll stand in there and he'll put his face mask in there and take on whatever guys coming in there. And he's not afraid to put his head down in between the tackles, which is not necessarily his strength, but he's not afraid to do it. He'll do whatever it takes. Make your miss ability. He's got that MYM I love to talk about with running backs, that ability to make you miss out in space. And in order to maximize runs, as a wise man once told me, you got to BYOB, you got to be your own blocker sometimes. You got to be able to make guys miss. The ability to take a 2-yard run and make a guy miss in the hole and make it an 8-yard run. The ability to take an 8-yard run that's blocked for 8 and make it a 28-yard run because you could make that second-level defender miss. Those are big traits, and Michael Carter has those. Pass catching prowess. I talked about his ability to catch the football already. 82 career receptions. This is a guy that was very reliable and dependable in that North Carolina offense. And I think he can be even better in the pass game. And I saw flashes of a guy that could be a real problem at the next level if utilized correctly in the pass game. Pass pro capabilities. This is a guy that, like I said, will stand in there, will put his face mask in the chest of a linebacker or a safety, or a defensive lineman, whoever. He may be at a disadvantage because of his size, but it's not going to stop him from, putting his body on the line. So I fully expect him to be on the field on third downs because he's a capable and willing pass protector. He offers special teams value. This is a guy that returned kickoffs in his career at North Carolina, so there is a bit of that as well. If you need to call on him for that, he can provide that for you as well. And finally, his collegiate production, man. This guy had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons in 19 and 20 to round out his career. So here's a guy that showed the ability to not only be productive, but to be productive in multiple years while at Chapel Hill. Weaknesses: lacks final gear to pull away. He's a 4.5 40 guy. Okay, 4.5 flat is what he ran at his pro day. And at times on tape, you see him pull away, but I've also seen him get caught. The guy had a massive game against Miami, over 300 yards rushing in that game for Michael Carter, and he could have had more. He broke off a big run, and he gets hawked at about the 10-yard line, and that's where you see that lack of a next gear, that gear to run away and separate. That gear that says, hey, I'm a 4.44 guy, and they're not catching me from behind. So he lacks that last gear, but there'll be a ton of triples and the occasional home run hit by Michael Carter at the next level. That is for sure. More adept at outside runs in space than inside. So as I mentioned before, he's not the best inside runner. He's more of an outside zone guy. He wants to press, get to the edge, then cut it back if need be. He's not necessarily the best inside zone runner, but he can do that. He's not a power in between the tackles guy, obviously, but I think he's at his best on the outside, not necessarily in between the tackles. And then in high school, he had a knee injury, and as a sophomore at Carolina, he had a wrist injury. Those are just a couple of items on the Carfax. Thought I'd mention that as well. So when I look at Michael Carter, I see a really good football player. He is not a bell cow. You drafted P. Ryan last year, LaMichael P. Ryan, and I think if P. Ryan is what you think he's going to be, adding a Michael Carter to the mix with all the backs that you have, I think he's going to fit in just fine and really be able to have an impact early on in his rookie season. For me, the player comp here is Ito Smith, running back for the Atlanta Falcons, a really good multi-purpose back in this league. And I see Michael Carter being in a very similar vein. For me, Michael Carter in the 4th round, 107th pick overall, is a 4. This is a great pickup for the Jets, a guy that's going to fit into this offense very well. And I think the best of Michael Carter is yet to come, and that's a good thing if you are a Jets fan. As we move now to the defensive portion of this draft, the remaining 6 picks, all defensive football players. We start with this 5th round selection, 146th pick overall. Defensive back out of Auburn, Jamien Sherwood is the pick. And I can just say this. They're going to play him at linebacker. He was drafted as a safety, but Robert Saleh looked at this kid and said, this is a big nickel for me right here. This is a guy that's going to play in the box and be disruptive around the line of scrimmage. And I absolutely love it. Because when you watch Jamien Sherwood on tape, what you see is a big physical safety that wants to come up and hit and has the ability to play around the line of scrimmage. And that goes for coverage as well. He can run with tight ends and be physical with them at the line of scrimmage. He's got the length that you're looking for. And that's a theme that we'll talk about consistently in this draft, is that Robert Saleh was looking for length. It doesn't matter what position you're playing defensively for him. He wants length. That's big for him. And it starts with Jamien Sherwood and his 34-inch arms. Okay, this guy's 6'2", 216 with 34-inch arms, vines for arms. So that's something that he loves, and you see him being able to use those arms to help him as a defender. 37 games, 141 tackles, 8.5 of which were for loss. He had a fumble recovery in his career. He had 2.5 sacks, 11 pass breakups, and 1 interception. So strengths: big, intimidating safety size. Again, he's going to play like a big nickel role. He's going to be in the box as a linebacker, which I think is probably his best position, because I don't think he's athletic enough to play safety at the NFL level, at least not deep safety. Where he did his best work at Auburn was around the line of scrimmage, and they did a really good job of moving him around at Auburn, but I thought he was at his best down around the line of scrimmage. Ridiculously long arms and range, and so when you have the kind of length that Jamien Sherwood has, what it allows you to do is it allows you to have a longer radius to break up passes, to get in the chest of a tight end, to be able to stay in a play even if you're not necessarily hip to hip. I'll give you a great example. I'm watching him against Georgia in 2020, and he is manned up against a very fast slot receiver down by the goal line. They're probably at like the 4-yard line on a 3rd down, and he's playing with outside leverage. And they guessed right. It's an out-breaking route. It's a quick speed out. He's able to plant and drive on it because he was playing with outside leverage, and he was able to then dive at the last minute and get a piece of the football and knock it away and force a field goal attempt. And that's where you saw the length. He needed every bit of that 34-inch reach that he has, because he wasn't fast enough to close, but he was long enough to be able to make up for the gap of not having the speed to close a little bit better. And that's where you see that length kind of come in to play. Physical presence with sure tackling ability. I'm just going to tell you right now, I know the speed isn't there, but I would take Jamien Sherwood any day to be my last line of defense, because by hook or by crook, he's going to get your ass on the ground. And I didn't see him miss a single tackle in the games that I watched him in. And that's saying a lot, because you got guys in this draft that are missing tackles left and right. And a lot of times when you get physically imposing safeties, they want to lay the lumber. They want to come down physically with the shoulder, and they don't want to come down fundamentally sound with the wrap up. They want to let you know. They want you to feel them. And this dude is like, look, nah, I ain't. Look, when I get my kill shot, I'm gonna take it, but best be sure that I'm getting dudes on the ground. And he's diving and he's wrapping everything and anything that's moving up and getting it down on the ground. I take this guy at the back end of my defense any day. So down around the line of scrimmage, this is a guy I trust to clean up any messes. So I just love that. Short tackler. Physical, but short tackler. Smart, heady player, diagnoses things really well. For a guy that didn't have a ton of starting experience, this is a guy that I thought saw the field really well. Really good communicator. You see him barking out orders to the rest of his teammates on the field, getting everybody lined up. You saw a guy that he got it. He understood what was going on, what the offense was trying to do. I thought I saw a heady, smart football player. Just watching him on tape. Can play over tight ends. I think that's something else he did well watching him on film. Now, I think if you get a vertical dynamo, a guy that can just flat out run, and he's able to beat Jamien Sherwood off the line, it could be a long day. However, if he's able to get into the chest of that tight end and disrupt him at the line of scrimmage, which is his specialty, he's going to be able to stay with that guy. And if that guy doesn't have elite, speed, deep speed to really hurt you up the seam, I think Sherwood is right there. That's where that length comes into play. And that height and that length, it's going to be tough either way. As long as he's not running this, down the field 30 yards with anybody, he's going to be right there. That length and that size is going to be hard to get the football over him. So I like him playing over tight ends. Plays well around the line of scrimmage. That's why they're moving him to linebacker right there, because his best work was done around the line of scrimmage. Weaknesses: lacks deep speed. He ran a 4.75 at his pro day, and when guys are slow, they'll be the first to tell you, I don't care about the 40. Just go watch my tape. He said, you know what stops a dude running a 4.40? A brick wall. That's what Jamien Sherwood said. A brick wall, and I'm a brick wall. Touche. Enough said. So he knows his limitations. He knows what he's about. He's a physical guy, and he's going to let you know it. But he doesn't have that speed, and that's why I said you get a tight end with some vertical ability to stretch the football field, and he doesn't get a good clean jam on him, he's going to get run by because he just doesn't have that deep speed. That's why you want him down around the line of scrimmage. Has to be more consistent with slipping or shedding blocks. I think too many times he got caught up on blocks that I thought he could have either went around and got to the ball carrier, slipped the block a little bit better, or get off of the block. He got those 34-inch arms. Use them. That's supposed to keep guys at bay, keep them off of you, and allow you to stay clean and go make plays. He's got to learn how to use that length to keep guys off of him so that he can be more consistent in the run game. And finally, not twitchy to click and close on underneath routes. He's got heavy feet. Again, when you run a 4.75, you got heavy feet. So and I talked about that play down by the goal line. Only reason he made that play was because of those 34-inch arms. It wasn't because of his ability to stick his foot in the ground and drive. He doesn't have click and close ability, but he does have length, and that makes up for the 4.75. And that's why you want him down around the line of scrimmage. I think that there's a lot to like here with Jamien Sherwood. Physical, big, long, pause. And I think guys like him now have a home in the NFL. Before, he'd be a tweener, too big to be big, kind of big for a safety, but too slow to be a safety, but not big enough to be a linebacker. But now in today's NFL with these athletic tight ends, and the need to have more athleticism, more size down by the line of scrimmage to cover these guys like Jamien Sherwood now have a home in this league, and that's why they're moving him. He's going to have to put on some weight. He can't stay. I don't think staying at 216 is necessarily what they're looking for from him. I think they'll ask him to put on some additional weight. But at the end of the day, this is a guy in Jamien Sherwood that has the athleticism now that he's moved to linebacker. That athleticism looks just fine. With the frame that he's in, you get excited about what he could potentially do down by the line of scrimmage. My player comp for him is Clayton Gathers, another big 6'2", 215-pound safety that was physical around the line of scrimmage, made a name for himself being physical down around the line of scrimmage. And I see a lot of those same qualities in Jamien Sherwood, who for me in the 5th round, 146th overall selection out of Auburn, is a 3. Like this pick, and I like what they plan on doing with him, converting him to linebacker. As we stay in the 5th round, 154th pick overall, a defensive back out of Duke, Michael Carter II is the pick. So you got a Michael Carter, and now you got a Michael Carter II, no relation, even though both of them played in the state of North Carolina. This is a guy that he screams nickel back, slot corner. That's what he screams to me. They played him all over the place at Duke. You watch him, he's in the nickel, he's at safety, he's at, corner as a boundary corner out wide. He's all over the place. So there's some versatility here that you love. 46 career games, 135 tackles, 7.5 of which were for loss, 1 forced fumble in his career, 1.5 sacks in his career, 24 pass breakups, 4 INTs for Michael Carter II. His strengths: at 5'10", 184 pounds, he is blazing fast and very, very twitchy. So the first thing I noticed on tape with him is I'm watching him run down the field about 40, 45 yards with a receiver that I know is blazing fast. I mean, I know this dude cooks guys. And I'm watching Michael Carter run stride for stride with him. Open up his hips, turn and run, and he's right there in that dude's hip pocket 40 yards down the field. I said, wait a minute. You got to be fast. That was the first thing I noticed about him, is he can run flat out. So I wasn't shocked that he ran a 4.3 flat at his pro day. Didn't move me one bit, because I said, I know you can run. Without even seeing the 40, I said, I know you can run, because I saw him running with a dude that I know is a blazer on tape. So right away, I said, okay, you got wheels, and you see that. And then the twitchiness is what you have to be able to play inside, okay? The twitchiness is what you got to be able to have to play inside, because receivers have a two-way go. So your reaction has to be quick. You got to be able to react to whether that guy, and they say it's a two-way go. I say it's a four-way go inside, because you can go outside, inside, up the field, or come back towards the quarterback. You don't know what's going to happen when you're inside. There's so much real estate to cover. You got to be able to react on a dime, and Michael Carter II can do that. Fearlessness at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't back up. He's not afraid. Doesn't matter who the challenge is. I watched this guy against Alabama. He got cooked in that game. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but he wasn't scared. He wasn't afraid. He didn't back down from the challenge. And look, I've always said this. You don't have to be afraid to get your ass beat, okay? The dude that's always barking, that's talking all this noise, and he ain't afraid. But just because you ain't afraid doesn't mean you ain't about to get your ass beat. So I love the fact that he's fearless. But don't take that fearlessness and equate it to, oh, he's a dog and he can't get beat. No, just because you're not afraid doesn't mean you can't get beat. But at the same time, I want a guy that's not afraid. I want a guy that wants to take on that challenge. And whether he gets beat or not, he's going to be back for seconds, thirds. And as a corner, you got to have that mentality. You're going to get beat. It's going to happen. You got to be ready to come back and wipe that from the memory bank. And he is willing to do that. Click and close ability. I talked about the twitchiness. Transitions really well. That's how he stays in the hip pocket. That's how he's right there. 24 pass breakups. That's how he's in position to get his hands on the football, is because he transitions very well. He's got that click and close ability, so he can drive on the football and make a play at the point of catch. You love to see it. Able to stay in phase. I talked about him running with dudes down the field. I'm like, yeah, this guy he's running with is a blazer, so I know this dude has wheels. He's right there. He's one of those guys that a lot of times is a nuisance. He's just always right there. It's hard to shake him unless you got some real moves, which we'll get to in a bit. Willing participant in the run game. That's where the safety in Michael Carter II comes to play, because he's not afraid. You see 5'10", 184, and you're thinking, okay, he don't want the smoke in the run game. Au contraire, my friend. This guy is all over it. He wants all the smoke. He's looking to get in there, throw his shoulder around, be physical. So He's not afraid to get involved in the run game and get his hands dirty. Positional flex. Talked about this guy playing boundary corner, nickel corner, and safety. So the positional flex is definitely there. You love a guy that can give you all of that in one package, and then you sprinkle in the fact that he gives you special teams value as a kick returner, and you say, well, what's not to love about Michael Carter II? Here's what's not to love. His weaknesses. Roasted and toasted by Jerry Jeudy in 2019. So the first game I'm watching, you tell me that Duke played Alabama? Oh, I got to see this. I got to see how he performed against the creme de la creme, the best that there is to offer in college football. What did he do against? And remember, Duke was in that game, if you recall, back in 2019, very first game of the season in 2019. Alabama was struggling. They got shut out in that first quarter, and Duke was in that game right till halftime. So the defense was playing ball, and, Michael Carter was given the tough task of having to cover Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle. And, man, it was a rough day at the office for Michael Carter. He held his own at times, but, man, was he spanked. I mean, he was given a good, thorough ass whooping in that game. Jerry Jeudy broke him off time and time again. I talk about him always being in phase and always being there. There were a lot of times in that game where he wasn't even close. Jerry Jeudy would put a move on him and break to the outside, and Michael Carter's still running the post. And I'm like, bro, he broke that thing off a long time ago, man. You got to catch up. You're losing right now. So he struggled in that game big time. And so I'm going to need him to clean some of that up, because you're going to see a lot of those kinds of athletes at the NFL level. And I saw him clean some of that up as the tape went along. But, boy, it was rough against Alabama. That is for sure. Has a tough time putting on the brakes and transitioning and then reaccelerating. So I told you he transitions well. The times when he doesn't is when he has to put the brakes on and then stop, turn, and then reaccelerate. He doesn't do that very well. Jerry Jeudy broke him off on several routes like that, a couple of whip routes to the outside. You see guys running those routes where, they're running those whip routes where they look like they're running a slant. They stop, they pivot, turn, go back to the outside. He has a tough time stopping and putting on the brakes. So what he'll do is he'll grab the wide receiver to try to help him stop, and then it'll help him reaccelerate as well. I think he's going to get called for holding on that at the next level. He's going to have to be a little bit better and sharper in his movements to stop and then reaccelerate. That's something I think he struggles with a little bit. Doesn't trust his technique enough. Not a true LLCer. Normally for me, if you're not an LLCer, I can't rock with you. Look, locate, and contest is what LLC stands for, and if you're not aware, for me. And in order for a cornerback to maximize his talents, you got to look back for the ball first and foremost, because you can't make a play on something that you don't see. You don't even know where the ball is. So you got to look back. You can break the pass up without looking. DBs do it all the time. Hell, Michael Carter II has done it a bevy of times in his career where he didn't see the ball. He just knew the receiver's hands was up and he was looking back. So he said, all right, I know the ball's coming. I'm going to get my hand in here and see if I can't knock the ball free. But I'm trying to pick it off. So in order for you to see it, you got to look. In order for you to then make a play on it, you got to locate it. A lot of times guys don't want to look back because they're afraid that if they look back, they're not going to be able to find the ball. Ball's already over their head, and now it's a catch. So if you're looking back, then you have to locate the ball, and then you make a catch. Look, locate, and then contest. So he doesn't do that a lot. He usually just plays the receiver. Like, all right, he's looking back. He's getting his hands ready. All right, I'm about to try to knock this thing away. And he does a really good job of doing that. But I need him to find the football. I need him to find the ball. And you're too fast to not look back. Like, trust your technique. You're in a great position. Now, you've done the hard part is to be there. To be there when the ball gets there. You're there. You got 4.30 speed. Turn and locate. You've done the hard part. Now go have some fun. Go get the ball. Don't love him from off coverage. And a lot of what happened to him against Alabama specifically was in off coverage. He was like, I probably shouldn't get up in Jerry Jeudy or Jalen Waddle's face. I should probably play off a little bit. It didn't go well. So I like him in press coverage. Watched him against North Carolina. Thought he did some really good things against De'Ami Brown and company there. And a lot of it was from press. I like my Michael Carter II in press. But my player comp for him is DJ Reed, another guy that's of diminutive stature, but has the ability to make plays and had some return ability coming out of K-State. And a guy that I really like in the league, and I think he's really doing some good things now for the Seattle Seahawks. And Michael Carter II reminds me a lot of him. I generally don't like guys that aren't LLCers, but there's something about Michael Carter II that I really like. I think he's got a chance to be really good as a nickel. I think he's a nickel back all day, every day in this league, and he tackles well, which you need your nickel backs to do in the NFL. He's got that twitchy ability. He's got the speed to be able to run with those burners that a lot of teams like to put in the slot. I just think this guy has a chance to be really good. Clean up a couple of technical issues. He's got all the things you look for me, in the 5th round, 154th pick overall. A defensive back, Michael Carter II, is a 3. As we get to another member of the secondary, 5th round, 175th pick overall, defensive back out of Pitt, Jason Pinnock is the pick. You could see where the emphasis was. You know, if not for a couple of these safeties transitioning to linebacker, you're talking about 5 dudes being drafted in the secondary. So you know where the emphasis was in terms of what needed to be cleaned up to get this defense up to speed for new head coach Robert Saleh. So here's another addition, another long, rangy corner that you look at and you say, okay, he's got arms for days, got the length you're looking for. Unlike some of the guys that you've drafted to this point, he's a playmaker. Jason Pinnock gets his hands on footballs. 6 feet, 205 pounds, 39.5-inch vertical leap to go with a 4.5 240. With his length, coaches salivate over that. And he lit it up at his pro day, and I think that's what ultimately got him drafted, that and the playmaking ability. In 33 games, he had 50 tackles, 3.5 of which were for loss, 1 sack, 18 pass breakups, but this is the big number, 6 interceptions in his career. And I think that's the number that got, coaches excited. There are a couple of plays on tape where you watch him and you go, whoa, that's some impressive shit right there. But then there's some things you watch on tape where you go, oh, no, can't do that at the next level. So he's a feast or famine corner, is Jason Pinnock. His strength can also be his weakness as well. We'll talk about all those things. Strengths, though, passes the eye test. When you look at him, 6 feet, 205, long arms. I told you that was one of the emphasis in this draft, is getting long-armed defenders. We've seen that even with the smaller guys like a Michael Carter or a player that we'll talk about here in a second. Even the smaller guys that they took in this draft, Brandon Echols, they all have length. So that's something that was an emphasis in this draft for the Jets. Plays with physicality and swag at the line of scrimmage. He's not afraid. One of my favorite games to watch him in, even though it was abbreviated because he got injured in the game, was against Gabe Davis in 2019 versus UCF, where they're just going at it. Gabe Davis was drafted, I want to say, in the 3rd or 4th round by the Bills in last year's draft, and they were just going at it. Mano y mano. And he made his fair share of plays. Gabe Davis made his fair share of plays. But they were physical with each other. They would talk. He was talking to him. It was a nice little back and forth. I enjoyed it. And that's the kind of swag you get with Jason Pinnock. He's a fearless dude. He doesn't back down from anybody. And he plays with a level of physicality at the line of scrimmage that's going to disrupt receivers. But if he misses, he's beat. He doesn't have the ability to catch up. His speed isn't there. But if he gets off a clean jam, you're in trouble. Tremendous athleticism, leaping ability, can run, agility, all of that good stuff. My favorite pick of his was in that same UCF game. Down by the end zone, UCF is driving. He's playing kind of, some trap coverage on the outside, eyeballing the quarterback. It's more of a cover 3 for him, but you could see that it could have easily been some trap 2 coverage, whatever the case may be. He's sagging off of, Gabe Davis, who ends up running an outbreaking route. So he turns him loose to the inside, and he's eyeballing the quarterback, and he sees the corner route running behind him, and he falls right underneath that thing, leaps up in the air, one of the most acrobatic interceptions you'll see. That's where that 30, damn near 40-inch vertical comes into play, and you see him go all the way up, climb the ladder, and snatch that thing out of the air. It's a gorgeous interception and a great example of a guy understanding what an offense is trying to do and making the quarterback pay for not seeing him lurking. So has tremendous athleticism. Greedy eyes leads to the prize for him. But greedy eyes can also lead to something else. But for him, greedy eyes leads to the prize. I just talked about an opportunity that he just took to make a play where his eyes were greedy and it led him to the prize. But tell you what, greedy eyes can also lead you to your demise. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in his breakdown. Willingness to tackle, not afraid to come up, mix it up, get dirty, all of that good jazz. And ball production, I talked about the 6 interceptions. That's what you want to see. You want to see guys take it away. A quarterback makes a mistake in your vicinity, he needs to pay for that mistake. You know, guys only continue to test you when you don't make them pay. What's the penalty for me coming to you if you're not going to take the football away? That's when guys start respecting you and stop trying you, is when they say, hey, it's 1st and 10. And if I make this mistake over here against Jason, I'm not getting it back. I don't get another snap or two to see if I can't pick up a 1st down or maybe score a touchdown. You know, so his ability to take it away is what scares teams. Weaknesses. Greedy eyes can lead to his demise. I talked about his greedy eyes leading to the prize, but it can also lead to your demise. And for him, he has given up 6 touchdowns of 25 yards or more since 2019. That's way too many. And you see it. You see how easy it can happen to him because he's being nosy. He's eyeballing the quarterback. He's not minding his luggage. His luggage is 20 yards down the field, and he just realized it. He's turning around, and it's too late. That guy's already by him, you know. And I'm like, dude, stop being nosy. You got a responsibility. Handle yours. But he's just one of them nosy dudes that really wants to try to make a play. He's in everybody else's mix, and sometimes he forgets about his job, and that'll get him got. Is impatient at the line of scrimmage. He opens up his hips at first movement. I saw times where he absolutely was cooked at the line of scrimmage with just a simple jab to the outside. Or he opens up, and now he gets crossed over. Guy runs a slant, and he is nowhere to be found. So he isn't. I talk about guys, the elite ones, being quiet at the line of scrimmage. The engine runs quiet. You don't even know it's on. Because you're doing all of this hezzy and all of this head and shoulders faking and all of this stuff, and they just like, hey, you done yet? So when you make your real move, that's when I'm going to move. But I'm going to stay square this entire time till you figure out what you want to do. He's not one of those dudes. The engine is loud. He's revving up, and as soon as you go, he gone. And now you can cross him up. You can get him where you want him to go, and he's got to be better than that. He's a different player with eyes on the quarterback than back turned. When his eyes are on the quarterback, he's dangerous. He's lethal. He can pick you off. When his back is turned, he's a liability a lot of times. So I think that there's something to be said about him and what he's capable of. He's your more traditional cover 3 corner. You know, guy you want playing off, soft, eyes to the quarterback. You know, he's a Dick Sherman type. You know, he's a Josh Norman type. One of those dudes. You give him an ability to roam and eyeball the quarterback, he's going to make some shit happen. But he's also got to be more disciplined to not allow anybody behind him. As a cover 3 corner, you're deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest. He has to make sure that he takes care of his responsibility first before you can go and make plays. But at the end of the day, my player comp for him is Josh Norman. I see a lot of Josh Norman in him. Not the fastest dude in the world, but got length, has ball skills, and not a guy you want matched up man-to-man with a dude that can run and make plays. But you give him a big receiver that he can stay in the hip pocket of, or you allow him to eyeball the quarterback, he's going to make some things happen. You know, and he's got swag, too. Not afraid to talk a little trash, try to get in the head of the dude he's playing against. There's a lot to like here, but what scares me with him is the big plays, man. This dude, there's too many times I'm watching him, I'm like, bro, if that quarterback looked your way, That could have easily been 6 because you were just so out of position just then. Too many times. That's got to get cleaned up. And I think it will. If it doesn't, he won't last long in this league. But if it does, he's got a chance to be a big-time player in this league. But that's a worry for me, and I can't get past it. In the 5th round, 175th pick overall, cornerback out of Pitt, Jason Pinnock for me is a 2. As we get to the 6th round now, 186th pick overall, safety or defensive back out of Florida State, Hamsah Nasirildeen is the pick. And another one of these safety to linebacker converts. Love it. That's where the league is going. You need guys that are big, fast, that can play around the line of scrimmage with some length and size to take on these tight ends. Hamsah Nasirildeen is a guy that fits that mold to a T. 6'3", 215, 39 games at Florida State, 234 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, a sack, 9 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions in his career, including 1 to the crib. So here's a guy that there's a lot to like here, on the field and off it. Let's start with his strengths. Height, weight, speed specimen. This is a guy that he looks the part, man. Don't know how fast he is. He didn't run at his pro day. Had a knee surgery not too long ago towards ACL. I want to say late in the 2019 season, but fought his way back and played in the final 2 games of the 2020 season. And that's a testament to who he is, first and foremost, because Florida State stinks. And they haven't been good in some years now. And it could have been easy for him to just pack it up and say, you know what? We stink. I got no reason to come back. I'm going to just go ahead and prepare for the draft. And he could have been done with it. But instead, he fought his way back onto the field and played in the final 2 games, even though they were meaningless for the most part. So that goes to his football character. That speaks to his football character and how much this means to him. But you look at him, 6'3", 215, with 34.5-inch arms. Are you kidding me? Like, he's the prototypical convert from safety to linebacker in today's NFL. Comes downhill with bad intentions. He's looking to hit anything that moves. Period. End of discussion. Tackling prowess. 22 tackles versus Boston College in 2019. I'm watching this game and I'm like, man, this dude is everywhere. You watch him in the Boise State game, you're like, this dude is freaking everywhere, man. Are you serious? I think the Boise State game was the first game of 2019. This guy's everywhere. He forced 2 fumbles in that game. He was everywhere in that game. Extreme length and size to be disruptive at the point of catch. When you got that kind of length, that kind of size, you're a problem at the point of catch. Best work is done at or around the line of scrimmage, similar to Jamien Sherwood, who we talked about earlier. Best work done around the line of scrimmage, which is why the Jets are drafting him and converting him to linebacker. High football character, fought his way back from the ACL to play in the final 2 games. I spoke to that already. And also, this guy was a team captain, not captain, but he was praised for his character in that locker room. You got to understand just how tumultuous it's been at Florida State the last, 3-4 years, all of the time that Hamsah Nasirildeen was there. And he was one of the high character guys on that roster. And they struggled. There was reason to quit. And, and I'm not saying that you got to praise a guy for not quitting. You're not supposed to quit, but it's easy to not come back from an ACL tear when your team stinks and you know that the NFL is calling your name. It's easy to just say, you know what? I don't need this shit. But he didn't do that. He came back and played the final 2 games of his collegiate career, and that says a lot. Weaknesses. Will miss tackles. This is my biggest pet peeve for me with Hamsah Nasirildeen is, bro, you gotta wrap the hell up. Stop coming down here with these frivolous, out of control shoulders. I can't tell you how many tackles I watched this man miss. For as impressed as I was against Boise State with him, all of the other games I watched him in, This dude is racking up the missed tackles. I'm like, against Clemson, he missed at least I'm not exaggerating. He missed at least 5 tackles in that game. Poor angles, didn't wrap up. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? So there's enough good tape and there's enough bad tape where you're like, all right, man, what the hell is this? What are we doing right now? He's got to be better. It's great to be physical and imposing and all of that good. You know what I want more than anything else? A guy to get another man down on the ground. Needs sharper understanding of offensive concepts. You know, too many times I'm watching him on tape. They're running a rub route and he sees the rub route coming and he still allows himself to get picked off. And I'm like, come on, man. You can't tell me that you didn't know what they were trying to do to you on this play and that you couldn't have taken a better angle. You got to make a decision. Either I'm going to go over this pick or I'm going to go under this pick, but I can't go through it, okay? I got to make a decision. It's too many times I just feel like he just didn't get what was trying to be done to him, or they're high-lowing him. Hey, dude, they're running this underneath route because they want your eyes in the wrong place so they can run a route behind you. And he didn't get it. And then he had the torn ACL in 2019. I already told you about that, but that's on the Carfax. Just thought I'd bring that up. My player comp, I got 2 guys in particular, because you have to mash them together. He's got the body type of a Jaron Curse, but he's got the mentality of a Keanu O'Neal. So you got to mash those 2 guys together. Jaron Curse, in terms of a body type, and Keanu O'Neal's mentality of, hey, I'm hitting anything that's walking. And that's kind of how Hamsah Nasirildeen is built. But the missed tackles are a problem for me. They're a major problem. And it's something he has to clean up. And so for me, in the 6th round, 186th overall pick, the defensive back / linebacker out of Florida State, Hamsah Nasirildeen for me is a 2. We get to the next pick, still in the secondary, 6th round, 200th pick overall, cornerback out of Kentucky, Brandon Echols is the pick. 5'10", $179 stands, Brandon Nichols. This is a guy that tested off the charts at his pro day, really helped himself in that regard, and he's got some talent. 24 games he played in, 108 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 1 sack, 11 pass breakups, 1 INT that actually came in his final collegiate game. Strengths, outstanding speed and athleticism. Guy blazed a 4.34 40 at his pro day, had a 42.5-inch vertical leap, a 4.12 3-cone, and a 6.84 short shuttle. So all the athleticism and attributes are there on display for you with Brandon Echols. Plays with a feistiness, willingness to tackle. I think that's a necessity for any guy that's going to be drafted by a Robert Saleh coached defense. You got to be willing to stick your nose in there. I can't deal with dudes that don't want to smoke, that aren't willing to get their hands dirty. So you see that again. And he's much like I talked about with Michael Carter. He's not looking to bat down. He's feisty. He wants to get in your face. And he knows he can run. So I can get in your face and be disruptive at the line of scrimmage because I know I can keep up with you. I got the speed to be able to do it. Very comfortable from side shuffle technique. That's his best technique. That's what he is best at. He's more comfortable from that side shuffle technique. And he does a tremendous job when he's in that side shuffle technique. Doesn't lose any ground, keeps everything in front of him. Has click and close qualities, so you can run that side shuffle technique when you can stop, plant, and drive on the football, which Brandon Echols has the ability to do. A good job of staying in phase. He's a guy that, again, much like Michael Carter II, he's always there, making a play on the football. He's always got a chance because he's right there at the point of catch. Weaknesses, he's got a very thin frame. As you look at him in front of you, he's a skinny guy, not a big guy. Obviously, he's right around $180. So, unlike a Michael Carter who, he's got more of a stocky, build. This is a tall, up and down, slender frame. Still learning the cornerback position. Brandon Echols went to a JUCO for the first 2 years, which is why he only had 2 years at Kentucky. And he had to make the switch from wide receiver to cornerback at that JUCO. And so by the time he got to Kentucky, he was still learning, but he was good enough to come in and pretty much start those 2 years at Kentucky. But he's still learning the position. He only been playing it for 4 years. So there is a little bit of growth that is there that still needs to happen for Brandon Echols. Not fluid on transition from back pedal to opening up. That's why he likes that side shuffle technique, because when he's square and he turns, the transition isn't fluid and he loses a bit of ground, and that gives the receiver a step or two on him that he's got to try to then make up for. So he's more comfortable in that side shuffle because he doesn't have to then turn and transition. He's already in that turned position to then react. So that's something that he may have to get better at, or they might just say, you know what, you're not comfortable in that. We're just going to let you side shuffle. And in ball production, he only had 1 interception. Now, I told you that was in the final game against NC State, and really it was a bad decision by the quarterback. He's in off coverage. He's playing zone. He sags off of his man, and the quarterback just doesn't see him, and he falls right underneath a pick. So all these pass breakups, but no INTs. So, again, where's the ball production? That's just a simple question you ask when you just don't see a lot of ball production from a guy. But in any event, another solid addition. He's cool. There isn't one thing that sticks out for me with Brandon Echols outside of his athleticism. Nothing really stands out. Solid corner, willing to tackle, has some athleticism, but small guy. He's a small guy, and he can get big bodied, and guys will push him off and be physical with him. And there's not really much he can do. Not a big guy. So in any event, 6th round, 200th pick overall, cornerback out of Kentucky, Brandon Echols for me is a 2. I think he's got a chance to make it in this league, though. But he's got some work to do, and it wouldn't be shocking if he ended up on the practice squad. They work with him as he continues to hone his skills and transitions from wide receiver to corner, which obviously he's had 4 years to do that, but still think there's some wrinkles to iron out. And it wouldn't shock me if they took the time to do that on the practice squad with him. As we get to the final pick in this draft, 6th round, 207th pick overall, defensive lineman out of Arkansas, Jonathan Marshall is the pick, 6'3", 310 pounds. This guy blew up his pro day. People came away from this pro day calling him an athletic freak at 6'3", 310 with 36 reps of 2 1/4, a 32-inch vertical, and get this, a 4.77 40 at 310 pounds. Wow. So there is some athleticism there for sure. In 45 games, he had 11 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 pass breakup in his career. His strengths: well-constructed frame with outstanding athleticism. You can see him. He's cut. I talked about the athleticism already. He can run. There's a lot to like with Jonathan Marshall. Has some real juice off the snap. My favorite thing about him is his ability to get into the backfield, to knife into the backfield, to be problematic at the line of scrimmage. When he gets off the ball quickly and is allowed to penetrate, which I thought he was put into some bad spots with the defense that they played. They played him at the nose a lot of times as a zero tech, and they asked him to two gap and take on double teams. That's not who Jonathan Marshall is supposed to be. He's supposed to be a one gap penetrator. Let him get up the field. Let him use his athleticism and quickness to be a disruptor on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. I didn't think he got enough opportunities to do that at Arkansas. When he was given that opportunity, he made plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Go see the Florida game if you want some great examples of him playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage when he's allowed to get into the backfield and penetrate. Potential to be a real run game disruptor at the NFL level, as I just mentioned. You give him an opportunity where you just say, hey, don't worry about two-gapping, okay? Just worry about getting up the field and being a disruptor. I think he could do that at a high level. Can collapse the pocket. He's got enough strength. I told you 36 reps of 2.25. He's got enough strength to get up under the pads of an offensive guard or tackle and really make it difficult on them to anchor down. You know, I've seen him collapse pockets and force quarterbacks to have to flush. Selfless player willing to sacrifice. You want your defensive linemen to be selfless players. You know, it's nice to get the numbers, and that's what gets you paid in the league is dudes they look up and at the end of the season, you got 8.5 sacks. Those are the guys that get paid, right? But you know what I want to? I want the guy that's is willing to stunt inside, take on 2 offensive linemen that frees up the looping edge rusher to come around and make a sack. That's the guy that I want, and Jonathan Marshall is one of those types of players. Weaknesses. Only started 1 season at Arkansas. Despite being there for 4 years, he only got the nod in his final year on the campus of Arkansas. So, you know, why couldn't he get on the field sooner as a starter? No pass rush prowess whatsoever is the next weakness. I talked about 1.5 sacks in his career. I mean, that's not saying much. And you see a guy, the next thing is no secondary counter to failed initial rush. He didn't have a bevy of moves. He's not a guy that, okay, my first rush, it was stale and it stalled out. All right, I'm going to spin off of this thing and see if I can't create a secondary rush and maybe fall into a sack. Once you got him, you got him. If he comes with a bull rush or he comes with a, you know, speed and he tries to find the edge and he can't, he's done. He said, all right, you got me this time. I'll get you next time. So not a lot of juice as a pass rusher. Not the same player when he's gassed. That's not saying much. When you're 310 pounds and you're tired, you're not going to have much to offer. But he's a really, really different player when he's tired. You can tell there's a massive difference. With some dudes, you know, there's a drop-off when they're tired, but you say, man, this dude's still out here giving me everything. You see Jonathan Marshall when he's tired, you're like, okay, somebody, you got to give him a blow. Somebody's got to come in. He's got to tap out. He's not the same guy. So, all in all, this is some solid depth. He's going to help you in the run game. I don't see much value here in the pass game. And so in the 6th round, 207th pick overall, Jonathan Marshall for me out of Arkansas is a 2. My player comp for him is Kyrie Thornton out of Southern Miss, another guy that I thought had a high ceiling in the league out of Southern Miss when the Packers drafted him some, 6-7 years ago, like 2014, 15, somewhere in there. And he never really developed at the next level. I see a lot of that same ability in Jonathan Marshall from a run-stopping standpoint. I don't see the pass rushing prowess, but I think he could be a disruptor on the defensive line if given an opportunity to do so. All right, so let's take a look at this Jets draft as a whole. Their first pick, Zach Wilson, quarterback, a 5. Second pick, offensive lineman Elijah Vera-Tucker, 5. Third pick, wide receiver Elijah Moore, 5. Fourth pick, running back Michael Carter, 4. All offensive players to start this draft, all really good picks. Then the last 6 picks, all on the defensive side of the football. Jamien Sherwood, a 3, who will convert to linebacker. DB, Michael Carter is the 6th pick. He's a 3 out of Duke. You've got cornerback Jason Pinnock. He's a 2 out of Pitt. Same could be said for Hamsah Nasirildeen out of Florida State, who's going to convert from safety to linebacker. He's a 2. 9th pick in the draft, cornerback Brendan Echols out of Kentucky. He's a 2. And the final pick of the draft, defensive lineman Jonathan Marshall out of Arkansas is a 2. You tally all of those scores up, you get a 33, divide by the number of picks, 10. You get a 3.30 for the Jets in this draft. So that's going to do it for the Jets in their draft wrap-up series. This was a really good haul. And like I said, this is a foundational draft if you're starting anew in New York, okay? Woody Johnson is back. You got a new head coach. For me, everything is on the up and up right now for Joe Douglas. This is the draft that I think it all starts with right here. If you get this draft right, Joe Douglas is going to be the GM in New York for a very long time. You get this draft wrong, and Joe Douglas the beginning of the end is starting for him if this draft doesn't work. I think he did a phenomenal job. Let's see how these players turn out for him, but this is a really good draft put forth by the New York Jets. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T, here on the 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Until next time, I'm signing off. You guys have a good one.